The rain, a ceaseless, drumming dirge, hammered against the warped window panes of the Proctor house. Each drop a tiny, frantic claw scraping at the fragile membrane between the mundane and the unnameable. I had been entrusted with the care of young Cody Proctor, a child touched by shadows that danced just beyond the periphery of normal perception. The Proctors, their faces etched with a weariness that spoke of sleepless nights and unspoken dread, departed with a hurried, almost frantic air. Their instructions were simple, yet carried an undertone of profound unease. Order pizza, keep the boy entertained, and above all, do not enter their room. A final, cryptic warning hung in the damp air like a shroud. Cody, he's different. He talks to himself, to his friend. Especially when he plays. Cody, a pale, slender child with eyes that seemed to hold the cold, distant light of forgotten stars, sat amidst a chaotic constellation of plastic toys. He moved with a strange, unsettling fluidity. His voice a low, murmuring cadence as he engaged in a conversation with the empty air before him. Agnes, he'd say, his lips barely moving, likes the red car. No, Agnes, don't break it. The name hung in the air, a chilling echo in the oppressive silence of the rain-soaked house. Agnes, a name whispered in the shadows, a name that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. I tried to distract myself with the flickering images on the television, a relic of a bygone era, its garish colors and absurd challenges a feeble attempt to ward off the growing unease that coiled in my stomach. The rain continued its relentless assault, a constant, maddening rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the unsettling cadence of Cody's murmuring voice. Then it happened. A small, rectangular toy, one of those crude, hand-cranked contraptions with a simulated racing scene, activated with a sudden, jarring whir. It was a toy that required deliberate, forceful cranking to function, yet it sprang to life as if manipulated by an unseen hand. Cody, I asked, my voice trembling slightly, how did that happen? He looked up at me, his eyes wide and unblinking, and said, Agnes is playing with it. The simplicity of his answer, the utter lack of fear or surprise, was more terrifying than any scream. I picked up the toy, its plastic casing cold and slick in my hand, and silenced its mechanical whir. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with a dread that seemed to seep from the very foundations of the house. The hours crawled by, each tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, a mournful tolling bell marking the slow descent into night. The rain intensified, now a raging torrent that seemed determined to wash away the very fabric of reality. As the final hour approached, I retreated to the bathroom, seeking a moment of respite from the oppressive atmosphere. The cold porcelain sink felt strangely comforting beneath my trembling hands. I splashed water on my face, trying to wash away the lingering unease, the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Then came the knock, a soft, insistent tapping, like the skeletal fingers of a long-dead thing scraping against the door. Cody! I called out, my voice barely a whisper. I opened the door, and the hallway stretched before me, a dark, yawning abyss. Cody was nowhere to be seen. A cold dread, like the touch of a spectral hand, gripped my heart. Then I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, a door, the last door on the right, began to creak open. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, it swung inward, revealing a sliver of darkness that seemed to pulse with an unholy light. I extinguished the bathroom light, plunging the hallway into an inky blackness. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird. I moved towards the room, my footsteps silent on the thick carpet, my senses heightened, straining to detect any sound, any movement. As I entered the room, I expected to find Cody, perhaps playing a childish prank, attempting to frighten me. Instead, I found him sitting in the far corner of the room, on the edge of the large, ornate bed. His eyes, in the faint light filtering through the rain-streaked window, were fixed on me, wide and unblinking. "Cody," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Who opened the door?" "Agnes," he replied, his voice a low, chilling monotone. The name, once again, hung in the air, a spectral presence that seemed to fill the room. I felt a wave of nausea, a dizzying sense of disorientation, as if the very walls were shifting, the very air thickening with an unseen presence. I reached for Cody, my hand trembling, desperate to pull him away from the oppressive atmosphere of the room. As I touched him, I felt a coldness that seemed to emanate from his very core, a chill that seeped into my bones and settled there like a malignant frost. I scooped him up, his small body surprisingly light in my arms, and fled the room. The image of his wide, unblinking eyes burned into my mind. I carried him back to the living room, the garish light of the television a feeble beacon in the encroaching darkness. I spent the rest of the night huddled on the couch, Cody nestled beside me, his silence more terrifying than any scream. The rain continued its relentless assault, a constant, maddening rhythm that seemed to mirror the frantic beating of my heart. When the Proctors finally returned, their faces etched with a renewed weariness, I handed Cody over without a word. I did not mention the toy, the door, or the chilling name that echoed in the empty spaces of the house. I did not mention the coldness that had seeped into my bones, the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. A few weeks later, when they called to request my services again, I simply hung up the phone. I would not return to that house, to the oppressive atmosphere, to the chilling presence that lingered in its shadows. The name Agnes remained etched in my memory, a chilling reminder of the night I glimpsed the edge of the abyss, the night I felt the cold touch of something ancient and unknowable. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that Cody Proctor was not alone. He was a vessel, a conduit for something far older, far more terrifying than anything I could comprehend. And I knew, too, that the rain, the ceaseless, drumming rain, was not merely a storm. It was a lament, a mournful dirge for a world slowly being consumed by the shadows that lurked just beyond the veil of perception.